evening. How are you?
Good. How are you, buddy?
Not bad, not bad. Been a little on edge all day waiting for this game to start.
Yeah, it's been interesting watching all the news stories coming out and everyone chatting about what's going on around the world and then in this game too. So, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
just very politically charged. It's probably the most. I don't know. It's wasn't like excitement. It was different, a different emotion coming into this game, just with everything that's going on.
So what are you thinking? Ups and downs? Do you want to start with the ups?
Um. Oh, ups. Starting to get some pucks to the net. 10 shots on goal is good. Shooting a little more from the middle, not trying to find the perfect shot so much, which we're going to need to generate some rebounds or a lucky seeing eye shot like McKinnon's through traffic there that found the back of the net. We're going to need more of that. We're going to need to get a little more physical because I think US is going to start ramping that up in the second period here. The first few minutes, you could kind of feel the tension between the two teams. No one really wants to give anyone an inch. Guys were stumbling that you don't normally see stumble. I think there was about 4 guys, 2 players aside there that toe picked in the first 5 minutes of the game. You can tell how much this matters to them. So, I mean, the intensity is up for sure. But I guess we did have the advantage in the faceoffs, so we'll take that. But yeah, just not a huge amount of ups there. It was just kind of your typical, very evenly matched teams. No one really wants to give anyone an inch, so it was a very neutral first period. With that fine line of tension that you could cut with a knife, this game is one big hit away from kind of the powder being lit and this thing exploding into an emotion filled party.
Yeah, I mean, and even you mentioned the hits too, right? Like Team America has got 15 hits so far. Canada has 7. So yeah, the Canadians definitely need to look at upping that total moving forward into this game because they might get run out of the building down there in Boston.
Well, and US has the momentum here with Tkachuk getting that goal. You know, that's pretty lucky goal to be able to get enough on that to get it up and over Binnington. He was tied up by 2 different sticks. It was just purely his momentum of skating forward, really, that propelled that puck over Binnington. Not even like Matthews meant to center it; it just kind of bobbled. Binnington had the wraparound covered. Just one of those things that is going to happen in games like this that you need to overcome. But you can't let US come out in the second period and have all the momentum and start pushing around because they're going to. Now that one period is done, everything's going to start ramping up. The closer we get to the end of the game, emotions are going to get higher and higher, and you can feel it. It's just there's one thing away from this game kind of exploding.
The one up I wanted to give out was because we talked about this earlier in the tournament was Jordan Binnington's puck handling skills, where I felt like he was having a pretty rough time trying to stop that puck behind the net. But the last, I'd say against Finland and then again against the USA tonight, his puck stopping behind the net has been great. He's been putting the puck to really good places, acting at like that third defenseman. I think he's actually outperforming Hellebuck to this point in the game. I've seen Hellebuck miss a couple of those ring arounds. So I did mention how Hellebuck had beaten out Binnington last time these teams played. I feel like that role might have changed tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Binnington has done a good job with that. And on the another note with Binnington, we had heard the announcers kind of talk about how he was kind of reeled in by the Canadian coaching staff and just said, "Hey, we know you like to play with emotion, but you're here for a reason, and if you can do that job, you're going to be a much better goalie." And when he kind of got slew-footed behind the net there, normally we would see Binnington go haywire.
Yeah.
And everything would kind of go sideways, but he did a great job just getting up, getting back in his net, and knowing that, hey, this is probably the biggest game of my career, and I've won a Stanley Cup. So it is that important to these guys. We saw pregame a clip McAvoy reading out the starting lineup for Team USA and then breaking down into tears at the end, just knowing that he couldn't go into battle with his boys because of the infection in his shoulder. So it's one of those games that you don't expect it to have this kind of emotion and this kind of feeling unless it's, an Olympic game or a world championship or a Stanley Cup final. But it just really shows how important it is to these guys to put on the jersey that represents their country and go to battle. This is their war, essentially. This is them standing up for their country and saying, we got you.
I think I have a down to give out too. McDavid. Did you even notice him?
No, he's got to get his feet going. I noticed a lot of McKinnon. McKinnon wants it bad. But McDavid's got to get his stuff together there. He was out there for that goal when Tkachuk scored, and you kind of see him he's not really in the play. He's off to the side. It looks like we're on a penalty kill almost. There's 4 Canadian defenders trying to crowd the net, and McDavid's nowhere to be found, kind of lollygagging off to the side. So that's one thing. Connor's big games. Still waiting for him to show up. It happens in the playoffs, and now it's happening. We haven't seen him in this kind of game before, right? As national fans and as Canadians. So it's can he find that level? Can he dig deep? And can we see Connor McDavid become a man in this situation who can find that extra gear and win and put the team on his back and be like, okay, we see him do it a lot with the Oilers. Yeah, he does put the team on his back, but when it matters most, he still hasn't been able to do that, like a Sidney Crosby or the way McKinnon did when Colorado won the Cup. That's the next level that everyone's just waiting for McDavid to get to, and he likes to complain a lot about officiating and things that hold him back and excuses and stuff, but every star player has gone through the same struggles that McDavid has gone through. But the elite ones that find that other level and find that other gear in the pit of their stomach to just push a little harder is something that McDavid hasn't shown he can do yet.
Sorry if I look distracted there. My wife just came out of the bathroom wearing her wig for the fan expo that we're going to this weekend. It's like, I don't even know what color it is because I'm colorblind, but it's like pink or something like that. And it's lavender. So yeah, I got a little distracted there. The one thing I would say about McDavid, and that's one of the reasons I think the Edmonton Oilers as a franchise has been held back, is it's that classic example of management giving too much work or too much responsibility to a single employee, right? If you give all the work to your best employee, eventually they are also going to run out of the ability to do things and they're going to break down. I think that might be similar to what's happening with McDavid and Draisaitl, right? Where, they're literally playing 30 minutes a night sometimes especially when they're playing from behind. So I think that might be a big part of it where, oh, whoops, I guess he played 28 minutes for the last 7 games. So he literally doesn't have anything left in the tank.
Yep. And that could be it too. And mentally too, he might not be able to get to that other level. There might be a mental block there.
Comment from Jakes Gives Hockey, the artist formerly known as Swerve and Irvin. How about a down for Jacob Slavin's nickname in the locker room being Slaves? Yeah, that would get you banned on YouTube and PlayStation Network. So a $6.99 dono for the terrible nickname.
We're gonna give a big miss on that one.
All right. After watching what we've seen so far in this Four Nations Cup, how the hell do we go back to an all-star game in 2 years?
So obviously, the hockey fan in all of us loves this tournament and the energy that it's brought. No one expected it to have this kind of emotion and feeling. It's something that we've never experienced. We've always had the all-star game. They've tried to change it a number of times. It's gone through different iterations. Yeah, it's really hard to look at it and go back. But if I were to play devil's advocate, some of the injuries coming out of this tournament probably have owners a little bit reluctant to have an event like this during the season again.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different when it's the Olympics and it's tradition that kind of transcends the NHL itself.
Mm-hmm.
When this is a manufactured money-making product by Gary Bettman and company, and you have guys getting hurt at the most important time of the season, it's a tough sell. No one really thought the guys were going to put as much into these games as we have seen. And, you know, these are the best players in the league. These guys are the top players on their team. And a team losing one of these guys at this time of the year when it's like coming out of this break, it's 6 games to the trade deadline, and then it's the push for the playoffs. Like, this is the most important time of the year for a lot of these teams. And if you lose your best guy, it could cost you a playoff spot. Like, you could be on the outside looking in all of a sudden. And me as an owner, I'd be pretty choked if that were the case for a nothing tournament that was just simply made to make money.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things too, right? Where like chocolate cake is great, but if you eat chocolate cake at every meal, you might get sick of it. And if they were like, oh, we're just okay, the Olympics happen every 4 years. So then the other 3 years, we're going to do a tournament instead of an all-star game. I think it would just lose its luster a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're going to see an all-star game the year after the Olympics, and who knows? Maybe they'll try and rework it a little bit. Maybe we'll go back to more of an old school kind of a 5-on-5 thing rather than the 3-on-3 tournament. But who knows what? That's still 2 years away, and in the chaotic world that we live in, who knows what we're going to see?
Yeah, exactly.
The 2025 Summit Series. Are we suddenly in the middle of a Cold War? The battle of political ideologies on the ice. And for everyone who doesn't know what the Summit Series was, back in 1972, Canadians had been beaten in the Olympics over and over and over again by a Soviet-Russian team. That was a professional team, but they, fixed the rules so that they weren't considered to be professional players. So Canada finally was like, screw you. You send your best team over. We're going to have an 8-game series. So in 1972, they played 4 games in Canada, 4 games in the USSR. And this is the middle, right at the beginning of the Cold War and like Soviet Russia and all that. Is this kind of starting to feel a little bit like that?
I mean, if this were an 8-game series, could you imagine the tension politically that it would have? I mean, politics were creeping into the NHL already because of Trump and the tariff war and things, booing the national anthems and that. So the tournament came at a very interesting time. We pretty much figured that Canada and the US were going to be the 2 teams playing in the final. Really, when you put the 2 teams on paper, just given where they're at right now and who they were bringing to the tournament, no Russians, no Slovakia, no one really out there to kind of pull an upset. However, you get a tweet this morning about Trump blabbing about the 51st state and all these things. And it just is so wild to me that a hockey game can generate this kind of division between 2 countries that have gotten along for ever and ever because,
since 1812.
when they, yeah, since we burned the White House, which they don't like to admit, but, we just like to make sure they remember that we burned your White House down in the War of 1812. And it was the second time we did it. Anyways, it's just wild that it has come to this, and it really does have that feeling of a Cold War type of country versus country game. Like, going into it, I'm like, Canada can't lose this game. Could you imagine like going online tomorrow if Canada loses this game and just the Trump supporters like with their 51st state talk and just ramming it down Canada's throat? Canada wins, we're going to move on and say, yep, we're the best hockey nation in the world and blah, blah, blah. Screw you. We don't care. There's just so many things that are just so funny to me about that whole conversation. It's like, okay, well, Canada becomes the 51st state. We now have the largest population out of any state in your country. So now we're automatically entitled to the most resources, the most money, the most all this stuff. And it's like, okay, fine. Give us all your money. It just doesn't, none of it makes any sense. And it just shouldn't happen. I'm not going to say never happen because crazier things have happened, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know how the world works, and I try to keep politics well out of my life because as far as I'm concerned, it's so broken and corrupt that until it's just a bunch of independent people running together and you actually have people that can voice for your riding, I'm over it, right? Like it's just a bunch of BS. And so at the end of the day, I just want to see these guys play hockey. And it has elevated the emotion for me to be more invested in this game, and I'm sure it has for a lot of other hockey fans. So I can't say that it's a bad thing, but we've seen what politics does to the NFL and all sorts of stuff. It sells tickets, right? So at the end of the day, Trump's a businessman. He knows what he's doing. He's always going to support US. That's who he is. Exactly. He loves to stir the pot. That's just what he does. And he's American and whatever. He's supporting his team. He just does it in a weird way. And then, of course, you get American players that then praise the support they're getting from Trump. And then you get hockey fans that kind of turn around and go, whoa, the honeymoon's over for people like JT Miller. I can say that much for free.
Yeah. 0 points in the whole tournament so far.
Yeah, but Petey's worse.
Yeah. One little piece to talk about for the Canucks. Obviously, we just got the announcement that Demko will not be going on the road trip after this tournament's over. So that's probably week to week for Demko. I've heard it's not the same injury as before, that it might be a groin. What have you heard?
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing. I mean, it went from not too serious to missing the 5-game road trip after a 2-week break. So, missing almost 4 weeks at the end of all of it. So, yeah, the Canucks have said the same thing. They swear it's not the knee and it's just a lower body injury. So we'll have to see what happens. It has caused some chaos with the Abbey Canucks and their goaltending situation, but we'll talk about that in the post game.
Yeah, sounds good, my dude. Enjoy the second and third period, and we'll like you said, we'll talk in the post game show.
Sounds good.
Nothing is perfect.